welcome. I'm Ananya Datta and you're watching Race to Power. Let's start talking politics. We start from Chicago tonight, where it's day 2 of the Democratic National Convention. After Kamala Harris's unexpected speech on day 1, we are waiting for more surprises today. And speaking of waiting, protesters outside are still uncertain about Harris's Gaza policy. Also, Sri Lanka is about a month away from presidential elections, and for the very first time, there might not be an outright winner. So we tell you what happens then. The Democratic National Convention kicked off on an emotional note. The room was teary-eyed as President Joe Biden took the stage. He reflected on his legacy while rallying for the future of America.
A night to remember. Tears, hugs, and chants of "We Love Joe." A visibly moved Biden addresses the convention, his voice tinged with emotion.
I love you, and with a grateful heart, I stand before you now on this August night to report that democracy has prevailed. Democracy has delivered. And now democracy must be preserved.
In July, Biden made the difficult decision to withdraw from the 2024 presidential race, clearing the path for Harris to lead the Democratic ticket.
When we put a prosecutor in the Oval Office instead of a convicted felon.
Biden's every word evoked more cheers as he passionately endorsed Harris and her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz.
Let me ask you, are you ready to vote for freedom? Are you ready to vote for democracy and for America? Let me ask you, are you ready to elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz? President and Vice President of the United States.
Harris, whose campaign has gained tremendous momentum, made a surprise appearance, expressing her gratitude for his leadership.
Good evening. Joe, thank you for your historic leadership, for your lifetime of service to our nation, and for all you will continue to do. We are forever grateful to you.
While praising Harris, Biden lashed out at Donald Trump.
Joey, family's the beginning. He says we're losing. He's the loser. He's dead wrong.
Our rights. We will fight. Day and night. We will fight. No.
Biden also briefly addressed the concerns of the pro-Palestinian protesters gathered outside the convention hall, acknowledging their anger and reiterating his commitment to working tirelessly for a ceasefire in Gaza.
For Joe Biden, this must have been a personally difficult moment. He spent more than 5 decades in elected office, serving in the Senate, elected first when he was even too young to serve at 29, for decades, and now having been vice president and then president for 1 term.
The Democratic Party is now looking to the convention to propel Harris towards a decisive showdown with Trump, whom they view as a significant threat to the future of the nation. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And as the day 2 of the Democratic National Convention kicks off in just hours from now, we are being joined by Jon Blan from Washington, D.C. He is a former foreign policy advisor to President Joe Biden, who advised Biden for 9 years on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Mr. Blan, good to see you yet again on WION. Thank you so much for joining us. Let me start with this. Kamala Harris entered the DNC in Chicago with leading in the opinion polls, especially in the battleground states, barring, of course, Pennsylvania, where we just checked she's still trailing behind Trump. But in general, the entire atmosphere that we saw on day 1, the parties rallying behind her. Why do you think that the duo keeps calling themselves underdogs still? What is your assessment of that?
Well, thank you for having me here. I think the real question in terms of who's the underdog, who's outperforming, is to what extent can we trust the polls, and to what extent is what's basically a statistical tie going to break in favor of one side or another. The Democrats are right to be portraying this as an underdog fight because that's the mentality they really need in order to win. We've seen in the past that Donald Trump tends to outperform his polls. He did it in 2016, he did it in 2020, and the Electoral College favors the Republican Party. So the Democrats really have to treat this as an uphill battle right up until the very day of Election Day.
So would you agree with that sect of people who are just calling this another honeymoon period, and we might see something different in the days to come?
I hope that that the honeymoon extends all through a harmonious marriage, but the Democrats have got to treat this as a tough fight. One of the things they're doing really well, and we should credit Kamala Harris, we should credit Tim Walz, of bringing some joy to the fight, bringing some optimism, some upbeat energy. That's exactly the right attitude. Joe Biden gave a wonderful speech, and if this Joe Biden had been able to be there 24/7, he might not have needed to drop out of the race. But the fact is that even at his best, he was not able to bring the joy and the lightness to this that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz have brought. They've been able to be happy warriors.
Right, Mr. Blan, you make a very important point there. I also want to ask you this. I want to talk about the protesters outside of the DNC center and obviously the foreign policy that we might expect from the next U.S. government. But before I come to that, let me ask you this. Do you think that sect is large enough for the two candidates to actually cater to their voices?
Oh, yes, I think so. They have all week to do it. Tonight was Joe Biden's night. Would have been helpful if the DNC had cleared away some of the earlier speakers who really, frankly, didn't need to be there. There were a lot of really low-level, mid-level DNC operatives who took a lot of time and forced Joe Biden into an after primetime spot, which wasn't very helpful. But tomorrow is President Barack Obama, former President Barack Obama, and former President Bill Clinton. The next night is basically Tim Walz night, and then the highlight is going to be resetting the table for Kamala Harris. So there's plenty of time.
All right, and let me ask you this, since who better to ask than you? Do you think Kamala Harris's policy towards Gaza is going to be any different than Joe Biden?
That's a wonderful question, and the honest answer is we don't know. She has given a lot of indications that she's more sympathetic to the Palestinian cause than, frankly, Joe Biden has been. And I hope that those expectations are borne out. Because
Mr. Blan, since you used the word sympathy, one of the protesters we just spoke to said, we do not want sympathy, we want action. Then how does Kamala Harris react to that?
That remains to be seen. And that is, it's an open question. And right now, the United States has, in my view, not taken a helpful role in this struggle. It is still supplying the weapons that the Israeli government is using to conduct a brutal occupation that is giving the Palestinians no hope for the future. So I really hope that Kamala Harris brings a true change when she is president. I don't think we're going to see any real change until Election Day, But after inauguration, I hope if she is successful, I hope she will take more of a balanced and pro-Palestinian stance.
All right, Mr. Blan, thank you so much for speaking to us from Washington, D.C. and getting us your insights.
Thank you.
And while the Democrats rally support inside Chicago's United Center, anti-war protesters, as we just said, outside are a constant reminder of what's awaiting Kamala Harris. And that's a fractured Gaza policy. Even before the event began, many anti-Israel protesters have been camping outside the venue. With permission, thousands planned a protest a few kilometers away from the venue. But after a few hours, some of them managed to reach outside the DNC center and breach part of a fence. Police detained a few as a scuffle broke out.
Kamala Harris has expressed her sympathies for the Palestinian people and what they're going through, but nice words is not enough. We want action.
The chants haven't fell on deaf ears. President Joe Biden acknowledged the protests, but stopped short of announcing any concrete plan.
Those protesters out in the street, they have a point. A lot of innocent people are being killed on both sides.
The protesters are angry over US's involvement in the Gaza war. Many are calling Washington a complacent in a genocide. The demand is an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and an arms embargo to Israel. Now, many experts, like the one we just spoke to, believe that Harris's policy isn't going to change very much. It will be on the same lines of Joe Biden, where she might sound sympathetic towards Gaza, but support to Israel will not alter. So how she tackles the anti-war voters is something we are yet to see.
Impact of the student movement in occupied Turtle Island to help.
Let's shift focus to Sri Lanka now. Even before it invited a record number of candidates to the contest, its presidential election was going to be crucial for the future of the country. It is the first election after Sri Lanka's economic meltdown. It is limping back, but still is in the middle of its debt restructuring. So after facing protests, political upheaval, the pandemic, and the rising prices, voters in Sri Lanka will head out to choose their next leader on September 21st. Let's tell you how the elections in Sri Lanka work. Sri Lanka's presidential elections follow a unique process. Designed in 1981, voters participate in a limited ranked voting system, which basically means that they can express up to 3 preferences for the president. Let's break that down for you. Imagine you're a voter and you have head out on election day. Now this year there are record 39 candidates. But to keep it simple, let's consider a hypothetical situation with just 5 candidates: A, B, C, D and E. According to the rule, you can have 3 preferences. Let's say your first preference is A, second is B and third is C. Once all votes are counted and A gets over 50% of the votes, she or he is the clear winner. But there can also be another situation where no candidate gets over 50% of votes immediately. In that case, all candidates except the 2 with the highest number of votes are eliminated. And after this, the second and third preferences from the eliminated candidates are redistributed. So in our hypothetical situation, all votes of B, D and E will be transferred to A and C. And the process will continue until one of the 2 candidates secures an outright majority. What's interesting is that in practice, this system has rarely been used in Sri Lanka. So much so that many citizens are unaware that they can rank multiple candidates. The reason is that since the start of elections, only one candidate from either major parties have become a clear winner. This time it might be different. With just a month to go, there isn't one favorite candidate. Among the 39 are many big faces, like current President Ranil Wickremesinghe, who is looking for a re-election, banking on his Redeemer of Lanka role. Leader of the opposition, Sajid Premadasa, is positioning himself as a champion of the people. Anura Kumara Dissanayaka is running on a platform of radical change. The once powerful Rajapaksa family will also be contesting the upcoming elections through Namal Rajapaksa, son of former President and Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. More than 17 million people are eligible to vote. The results are expected within a day of voting, and the winner must be sworn in within 2 weeks. Let's now shift focus to neighbouring India. With the announcement of assembly elections in India's Jammu and Kashmir, political parties in the Union Territory are stepping up poll preparations. The Election Commission of India has announced assembly elections from September 18th, and the election will be in 3 phases, and counting will be held on October 8th.
Political moves are intensifying in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. Within days of the assembly election date announcement, political leaders are switching sides. Senior leader Taj Muhyiddin is back in the Congress party after leaving former Congress leader Ghulam Nabi Azad's DPAP. Vice President of the Jammu and Kashmir National Conference Omar Abdullah also released his party manifesto in Srinagar. It focuses on the revocation of Article 370 and 35A and restoring statehood for Jammu and Kashmir.
Our manifesto was not prepared while sitting in office, but took in consideration the opinions of people. It focuses on restoration of our political and legal status, which is Article 370 and 35A. Also about restoring the statehood. We will also repeal all the new laws that have been introduced due to which our lands have been given away. It also speaks about the people languishing in jails. We will give amnesty to all political prisoners and repeal the PSA.
The manifesto also advocates Indo-Pak dialogue as the best method to resolve ongoing conflicts. Besides expressing commitment to the return and rehabilitation of Kashmiri Pandits, the party has announced free education for everyone till university level and 200 units of electricity for every household.
Electricity prices are going up and water is not available everywhere. We will address this as well. We will give 200 units free electricity. Free education will be given to the students of Jammu and Kashmir up to university level. We will favor the India-Pakistan talks and support the CBMs that were put at the time of Atal Bihari Vajpayee and Manmohan Singh.
While none of the political parties have yet announced alliances, the Congress and National Conference are expected to soon hold talks.
We have a committee constituted by the All India Congress Committee, which has to deliberate and then see the parameters, and we can then have the discussion with the other parties, like-minded parties.
Jammu and Kashmir is also expected to see many new faces in the upcoming assembly elections.
The Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir is abuzz with the fresh political activity after the announcement of assembly elections starting from September 18th. National Conference today released its manifesto focusing on the restoration of Article 370 and 35A with a promise of return of statehood to Jammu and Kashmir as well. The other political parties also in fray to release their manifesto in the coming few days. With video journalist Feroz Idris Lone for WION World is One.
An Israel-like scenario of a judicial overhaul has erupted in Mexico. A coalition of unions representing Mexico's judicial workers have initiated an indefinite nationwide strike just as lawmakers prepare to vote on sweeping changes to the country's judiciary. One of the most controversial proposals is the shift towards the popular election of judges. Outside courts and judicial buildings, workers rallied with banners and chanted slogans voicing their opposition. The unions issued a statement condemning the reform as rushed and warned that it posed a quote-unquote significant threat to the judiciary.
The important thing is that the members of the Federation's judiciary, in all its variants and categories, disagree with the reform. Not because we do not think that there are areas for improvement, but because we are starting from an inaccurate premise. Besides, they want to take it to a popular election. That is absurd. We cannot establish that popular elections have avoided corruption or nepotism because we have thousands of examples in other branches of government to prove it.
Representing a large portion of Mexico's 55,000 judicial workers, the unions argued that the proposed changes would dismantle the merit-based career paths within the judiciary. Analysts and Mexicans view their judicial institutions as the only counterweight to the Morena party's stronghold on the presidency and Congress.
We are not against reform. All reforms are good, but not from a discourse of hatred, polarization, and saying that the judiciary is evil or corrupt.
This judicial overhaul is a key priority for outgoing President Andrés Manuel López Obrador. The reform is expected to come to a vote in the newly elected Congress next month during the final stretch of the incumbent leader's presidency, who has slammed the uproar.
They don't want an authentic rule of law. They want a crooked state. It is very arrogant that those who feel they own Mexico want to have judges, magistrates, and ministers at their feet.
And with that, we are wrapping up this edition of Race to Power. Thanks for watching with me, Ananya Datta. Goodbye.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at yo1.com.
We hereby call the
America's Democratic National Convention underway. Together, Biden takes center stage amid "We Love You, Joe" chants.
She knows that tonight is Joe Biden's night. Kamala Harris is the right person to beat Donald Trump.
POTUS calls on Americans to save democracy.
Democracy has delivered. And now democracy must be preserved.
Teary-eyed Biden embraces Harris and Walz. America's Race to Power on WION World is One.
Namaste. Hello, friends. We did Dr. Subhash Chandra show, popularly known as DSC show, for 4 years, from August 2014 to August 2018. 28 states of Bharat, Of course, we reached out to all of you in 190 countries across the world. The show was very successful. Each episode was being watched by almost 25 million people every week. For past 6 years, the demand of the show has never died down. People write to us, people ask for the show to restart again. Hence, we are beginning the show once again on All Z Network, also on WION, which is the global network channel from India. Again, thank you for your love and affection. See you soon at Subhash Chandra Show.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at yoursarthi@such.org.in.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. India's Global Voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one. Everyone loves a contest. But sport isn't just about victory and defeat. When the GOATs in sport speak, you hear it first on WION.
You have to play good cricket over a period of time.
I should push myself right out of the damn tournament.
We go beyond the stats. Our stories are quoted the world over.
At WION, sport is part of our DNA. Come, join us on this journey. Weekdays 6:30 p.m. IST, 1 p.m. GMT.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Hello there, this is WION World is One. We are glad you're watching. Time now for Fine Print. I'm Eric Nzoka. The headlines. Barack Obama will crown Kamala Harris the future of the Democratic Party and as the first black and South Asian woman presidential nominee, heir to the movement he ignited in 2008.
Our shared vision.
More than 200 South Korean and US fighter jets